And then it's always the other question, Rana, how do I get experience? I'm starting out. How do I get experience? Because companies want experience. How do I get experience to get the job? Because I need the job to get experience. So what do I do?
Right. So we're in a very unique field where you can get experience from the comfort of your own home. You don't actually have to go, let's say, to the mines to gain experience in your field. And so we have this opportunity where we actually can gain that experience for essentially free or for very little cost. And so if pen testing is your goal, what I would recommend is when you're pursuing, let's say, the OSCP certification, that's experience on its own because they give you hands-on exercises where you try to hack into a bunch of networks and so on. But if you're not in the OSCP or you can't afford it or whatnot, there are platforms that provide that ability for free or for essentially very little cost. So things like Hack the Box, that's how I got started. It's insanely cheap per month. And what I did is I started off with retired boxes because I had no idea how to solve the active boxes that don't have solutions because I was just starting out. So I would start off with retired boxes. I would watch IPsec and see how he solved the box. And then I would attempt to solve it on my own. And then I would move on to the next box and the next box. And then I would loop back to the original box that I did, let's say a month after I did it, and I'll see if I'm able to solve it on my own. So that's just one platform of like many platforms. So there's Try Hack Me, which is more hand-holding than Hack the Box, where you could learn that you could install your own VMs from VonHub that are for free, or you could set up your own network at home to gain that experience. I think for me personally, when I got hired for my first job, I didn't have any network pen testing experience, but I had web application pen testing experience. And the way I got that is by downloading OWASP intentionally vulnerable VMs, and I would download them on my computer, and then I would attempt to hack them. And I know for sure that the person that hired me for my first job, he read my cover letter and he saw all these kind of like, let's say, extracurricular activities that are security related, like, downloading VMs and solving them and so on. And that's what made him hire me, because I showed initiative and I gained that experience on my own. And it was essentially free experience. You dedicate your time, of course, and your resources, but it didn't cost anything because the VMs were for free. And that's essentially how I got started until I gained experience in real world environments.
So you got your OSCP, that opened the door. The person hired you based on your OSCP and the fact that you did the self-learning stuff. Did I understand that right?
No. So I actually got my OSCP a year after I got hired.
Oh, okay.
The person that hired me based on the initiative that I showed when it came to my self-taught knowledge and self-gained experience in web application pen testing.
Okay, so that's amazing. So you didn't have the OSCP didn't open your first door, but it opened many other doors. But you got hired in your first job. You got hired based on stuff that you did by yourself. But how did you prove that? Did you document it somewhere? How did they find you, or did you just apply and then on your cover letter you just listed the stuff that you had done?
So I listed it on my cover letter. I also, at the time, I had given a talk at Besides Ottawa about web application vulnerability scanners and the research that I worked on. And my supervisor was actually also in the audience. And so that played a role in hiring me as well. But like I mentioned, when I had talked to my supervisor, again, I think it was like a year after he hired me, he said that most people will just say, oh, they have so-and-so degree and they want experience in the field, but they didn't put any initiative on their own to actually gain that experience. And we're in a very, again, unique field where you could gain that experience from the comfort of your own home. And so at the time, I didn't have any way of documenting it other than like verbally when he asked me questions about like, what was your favorite vulnerability? Or let's say you have this web application, and it has a form where you could register your email address. Tell me how you would, what vulnerabilities you would test for, or your methodology for testing that vulnerability. So that was my only way of kind of like proving that I had that experience. But after that, and after getting hired and getting the OSCP, I actually started writing blogs and about the OSCP certification. And then I moved on to videos for web application pen testing. And when people reached out to me, I've had individuals literally waive the technical interview just because they saw my videos and my blogs. And so they didn't think that they needed to test me for that based on my documentation online.
I think there's so much value in documenting what you're doing. I always like to say, create LinkedIn posts, or, create a website, put it on GitHub, make videos, even if it's TikTok, whatever, but show people what you can do. It's amazing how people will find you if you put your stuff out there.
I agree. And it's not only that, it also shows your genuine interest in this field. And I think employers look for that when it comes to hiring someone that is like genuinely interested in this field. Because most people who are in this field and are good at what they do are genuinely interested in this field and love this field. And so employers look for that as well.